I'm Liz Shuler, president of the AFL-CIO. I am so honored to be here with you today, and thanks everyone for tuning in because this is the 100-day mark, and we are so honored as the labor movement to be a part of today. This is a 100 Days conference, and we want to thank our three hosts, of course, for bringing us together. And not just those here in the room, but of course, everyone out there watching online. I have to thank Norm Eisen, who incredible colleague and friend, but who has built a phenomenal coalition of some of the best lawyers in the country to protect the rule of law. And I just want to personally thank you, Norm, for everything you have done also to protect the civil service. So I appreciate you. Michael Tomasky, Jennifer Rubin, of course, thank you for speaking truth to power at the New Republic and the Contrarian, for sounding the alarms on the attacks on our democracy. And that's really where I want to start today, is democracy. Democracy means rule by the people. And I'm here today representing people, the labor movement, which believes in the idea that democracy is at our very core. 15 million working people in our federation, 63 unions. Our members know and tell themselves daily, my voice matters. That, you know, me, my brothers, my sisters and siblings, we are the ones who can shape our unions and shape the future of our country. And it's because of that belief in democracy that we stand up every single day against the concentration of wealth and power that exists. So 100 days ago, when we heard Elon Musk was going to get his own Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, right? He was going to have an outsized voice in how our government worked. We decided to do something about it. So we created our own department. We created the Department of People Who Work for a Living. That's right, the Department of People Who Work for a Living. Because we see what is happening on the front lines of how these government agencies operate. We are the folks who are doing the work behind the scenes. We are the folks who really need to understand what this DOGE is even doing and how it impacts people and why it matters. So the Department of People Who Work for a Living has become that platform. And we started hosting town halls and hearings in communities all over the country, in places like outside Macon, Georgia, Asheville, North Carolina, places our politicians don't often go to. And these aren't red or blue strongholds. We set them up with a very simple idea, that if you have a story, if you've been affected by what has gone on, join us. We want to hear from you. So over the last 2 weeks, thousands of Americans showed up. Not just Democrats, not just activists, people from every walk of life who said, I have never come out to one of these before. But what has been going on has changed my life and has changed my community. And I want to speak out. I want to be with other people who are feeling the same. Some working people showed up who had been fired from the only job they'd had in 20 years. And they were fired over email, by the way. We had veterans show up who had served in active duty, who suddenly couldn't get the care that they needed. But I'll tell you the other thing I saw. I saw people standing up, fighting back, not just for themselves, but for their neighbors. A retired letter carrier in Charlotte, North Carolina, Jacqueline Sandel, who said, they're jeopardizing the jobs and services that my friends count on, and I will not and I cannot sit back and watch that unfold. We heard from Simplice Coelho, a local leader at the Cargill meatpacking plant in Davenport, Iowa, and he said, those same immigrants that they're threatening, we put food on America's tables. And so I'm fighting not just for our workers, but for every family in this country. Lori Hendricks, a nurse at Mission Hospital in Asheville, who said, my patients count on Medicaid. I will fight with everything I have to protect it and vote those out who threaten it. Unions give voices like these a platform, and we amplify them wherever we go, especially in this town, in Washington, D.C. And these stories and voices coming together is how we build power. And I think Congress and the White House need to know that what we have seen the past 100 days out of this administration, the policies, the agenda, the way they're doing it, it ain't working. It's crossing a line. They've attacked independent thought in the media and higher education, in our judicial system, especially in our unions. And the reason for stripping 1 million federal workers of their collective bargaining rights, the reason? It's because they didn't like that our unions were fighting back. They've attacked our most vulnerable, our immigrant workers like Kilmar Abrego Garcia, and trans and queer Americans with the goal of dividing us. They've attacked the coalitions that are most equipped to fight back. And they've started with organized labor because authoritarians always start with organized labor. They came immediately for our federal workforce, cutting funding that Congress appropriated, firing workers with no due process, lying about their performance, trying to get other workers to quit. And when our unions fought back, the grievances, the lawsuits, what we saw in response was the single biggest act of union busting in our history. I'm going to say that again. The dismantling of collective bargaining rights for our federal workforce, the largest attack on the labor movement in our history. 1 million federal workers illegally stripped of their collective bargaining rights, moving to cancel their union contracts with the stroke of a pen. And those who haven't filed grievances yet, they're saying, oh, we'll give you your rights and your contracts back if you keep your mouth shut and fall in line. Well, if you know anything about the labor movement, we don't fall in line for autocrats. We know an attack on one of us is an attack on all of us. And today it's our federal workers. Tomorrow it's the private sector and the nonprofits. And the day after that, it's the basic rights and dignity of every working person in this country. And the question for us right now is, and it's the same question that's really been the same for every coalition in history that has stood up in a crisis of democracy. And that question is, how do we build the mass movement? How do we create power when all of the traditional levers of power are out of our control? Well, I'm here representing 15 million working people, again, across 63 unions in every sector of the economy. And what I can tell you from talking to those workers, protesting with those workers, striking with those workers, there is a common agenda that unites the majority of this country. It's our job, all of us here, to paint that picture that there's a common vision that is possible. And asking every person a simple question. Are you better off now than you were 100 days ago? Do you feel safer knowing that people who inspect our food and keep our water safe and clean and make sure our planes are flying safely in the sky, does it make you feel safer to know that those workers who ensure that have been fired from their jobs? Is life for you and your family easier now that the people who run our child care centers and work at our Social Security offices are not there anymore? Does it make sense to you that your dad, your mom, your loved one might get thrown off Medicare so that billionaires get another tax cut they don't need? The fact that Trump is underwater right now on every issue, inflation, the economy, taxation, even immigration, does not happen by accident, folks. It happens because we have organized and we have turned up the heat. We can rewrite this country's history. We have the organizing strength to do it. Look at what we've done. Look at what we've done. At the turn of the 20th century, we had the 40-hour work week was never even heard of, right? Until the workers started organizing in Chicago and across the country and organized for something better. Child labor was a permanent fixture of our economy until Mother Jones and the Newsboys and the Bread and Roses strike in Massachusetts rallied the country for reform. Discrimination in the workplace was the norm until the labor movement and civil rights movements came together and fought for the Civil Rights Act and the Fair Labor Standards Act. Right now, we have that kind of energy. We have it at the grassroots level. We have tens of thousands showing up to rallies and protests and town halls who are ready to do something. We have entire communities coming out to protect their immigrant neighbors. We have brave lawyers taking the fight to this administration, winning in court so that thousands of Americans can return to their jobs. We have people organizing together and forming unions in places we have never seen, like the Deep South, saying, if my government isn't going to fight for me and raise my minimum wage to a livable wage, then I'm going to stand with my coworkers and I'm going to do it myself. We can do this together. We can connect ourselves to an agenda that unifies the people of this country and that they're hungry for. We can all come together to defend the rights of our federal workers, knowing that you could be next in line. We can come together and demand more out of our politicians when our rights and freedoms are under attack. And we don't have to choose sides when it comes to the basic dignity and humanity of all people, including immigrants, trans and queer folk, and those under attack from this administration. So Jen, I'm going to close with a quote, something you said last week. You wrote, "Democracy does not defend itself, nor can we expect politicians to save us from autocrats. The decision to capitulate or resist rests with each of us. The sum of all of those decisions will determine if we succeed or fail." Thank you, Jen. Couldn't agree more. None of us on our own as individuals or within our organizations can defeat autocracy or oligarchy. But it's up to all of us to work together, protest together, because courage begets more courage. And more people get involved. So thank you so much. Let's use this conference, this 100-day milestone, as the moment to come together, to strategize, to organize, and really start creating the kind of society that we all want to live in. Thank you so much.